Welcome back to Coffee Plays. I'm Coffee, and we are joining our adventurers. That is our party, which we just doubled the size of in the last session. So we have Thana, the priest, Sage, the I guess wizard's apprentice, Hrogar, the fighter, and Godfrey, our thief, right, all of whom are now ready. Oh, it's focusing really badly. I don't know what's going on there. In any case, um, whatever. Right, so we are heading into the tunnels of doom. Our goal here is simply to acquire whatever treasure we can, because the acquisition of treasure is what builds up experience, which in turn is what's going to help us to eventually go into a totally different um, dungeon so we can get the Hammer of Laios, which is the ultimate goal for Ophelia, who is the one who is sending us on this quest. Okay, right. So that is where we are going at this point. Right. So I had to stop the last session because I needed to actually generate some of like the basic stuff, like coming up with random encounter tables, that kind of thing, for this dungeon we're heading into. Right. So now I want to generate the structure of the dungeon itself kind of as we go. So the first thing that's going to happen, I'm going to do this as a point crawl, mostly because when I look at, and I think I said this before when I went into a dungeon, when I look at the solo dark stuff, which is what I'm using, uh, she doesn't actually tell you how to make a dungeon. That's not part of the instructions. But she does provide a number of options for various tools you can use, and a lot of them are in effect point crawls. So that is what I'm going to use. Is I'm going to kind of modify. I'm using the sandbox generator, which really has kind of a grid-based view for what dungeons would be like. But I'm going to take it and I'm going to modify it a little bit to make it more like a point crawl. Okay, so there are a couple points where I'm going to have to kind of tweak things to get it to work. Okay, so in any case, right, so one thing we know is that there are kind of two ways down to the first level. So the way that I'm imagining this happening, so the tunnels of doom are in the mountains. So imagining that we get here and there is like a large entryway. I'm going to just assume that we don't have to speak friend and enter or anything like that, that we can just go in. But really the danger is inside. And also there's a way that stuff got in there, right, to start with. So we go in and immediately, or very, very shortly after we get in anyway, we are faced with a choice. That is, there's a left tunnel and there's a right tunnel. And these go to the two different possible sub level, or I guess sub levels there in the first level of the dungeon. So the question is which path we're going to follow. I don't have a strong preference either way, so I'm just going to roll for it. I'm just going to go ahead and just roll. If it's 1 through 10, I'm going to go down the left. I have 17, so we go down the right. So this is going to be sub-level 1B, that's what I'm calling it. It's going to have 23 rooms total. Okay, so that is what we've got. Okay, so we're in 1B. Now, so I'm just going to go through and I'm going to number each room as we go and then make some notes about it as we go as well. Right, so we've got room number 1 is where we come in. All right, so I'm going to come in from the top of this sheet. Okay, so what do we know about room number 1? Well, let's find out. So the first thing I want to know about room number 1, I'm just going to make a note off here in the margin. So number 1, in terms of its size, now I'm not worrying about specific grid combat or anything like that, so I don't need to know the exact number of squares, but I would like to know, generally speaking, how big is this room? So let's see, 6, so it's a very large room. So this is a large room, which suggests to me that if we end up having to have a combat in this room, then we could potentially have, some space between us and whatever it is that we're fighting against. A second thing, I'm not really that worried about the shape of it because I'm just not that concerned about it. I am concerned about the type of room this is and whether there might be treasure in it, because that's really why we're here. Right. So, what type of room is it? Two, this is an empty room. So, empty room, that doesn't mean there's literally nothing in it, but rather it's that we're not facing monsters or anything like that. So, there is a D100 table I can roll on to find the contents of an empty room. Right. So, 39 is what we've got there. So 39 is telling us there's a fountain here. Is this first room, right? So we come in. So I'm guessing then, while this may be the tunnel, being a tunnel of doom, I'm guessing that it has kind of the appearance of more like natural tunnels. I'm not thinking that this was something that was carved out by dwarves or anything like that. So by fountain here, I'm guessing this is kind of a natural fountain as well. Uh, is there treasure here? There's a 15% chance of that. So if I roll 15 or lower on the C100, the answer is yes, it's 92. It's definitely not. So no treasure here. So that is what we find in this room. The next question is about doors out of this room. Now we know there has to be at least one, right? So if I roll as if there's none, then I'll just re-roll it. Okay, so 12. 12 suggests there is a secret door. Okay, so there being a secret door, I'm just going to make the assumption here that we're just going to keep searching because we know that there's a way into this place, right? So we're just going to keep searching until we find the door. I'm rolling for this because we're not really under any kind of time constraint. It turns out the door was just camouflaged, so that is what the 2 is telling me. If it's camouflaged, how is it camouflaged? A D12 can tell me that, right? So let's see, it just looks like the wall. Now, what is the clue that helped us find it? 5, airflow. Right, so we're kind of feeling around the edges of this uh, room. And we do feel so there's like a crack in the wall we can actually feel air moving through, which tells us it's more than meets the eye. And we do, then we're then able to open this door. Now, which direction is it straight in front, left, or right? It tells us it's to the right. So we're heading this direction to the right would be on my paper to the left. Okay. So over here is going to be room number 2. Right. So I go through into room number 2. Now, one thing that I need to figure out before I get too far is how I'm going to find stairs to the next level, because normally the way that works in Sandbox Generator is that you have corridors, and corridors have an end to them, and that end might potentially be stairs down. Right. So I'm wondering if there might be a better way to handle this than what I'm doing right now. I'll think of something, but at the moment I want to explore this floor anyway, so it doesn't much matter. And I know there are lots of other, um, there are plenty of other rooms here. There'll be a total of 23, we said. All right, so number 2. Let's make some notes about room number 2. So room number 2, first thing is how big is it? 3. 3 tells us that it's a medium room, so I'm just going to mark M for medium. And then the type of room, type is a D6. So it's 6. It is a monster room. Okay, cool. This is kind of what I wanted. Okay. So in this, I do have a random encounter table. So which monster is it? Monster number 1. Okay. So one of the types of monsters that is here in this level is a fairy. So I want to read a little bit about fairies here. These are miniature fey folk with fluttering moth or butterfly wings. Now I don't think that I have any specific like fairy looking things. There we go. The generic spec right there. So there's a fairy in this medium-sized room. So medium-sized tells me there's not a whole lot of space. So I think it's probably going to be pretty obvious when we come in. Okay. So, is there anything else I need to know about this before we? Yep, there's not. So I'm guessing fairies will not necessarily immediately be hostile. It's so I'm going to assume that they are not monstrous per se. Right, so that being the case, I do want to figure out what they're doing and what their reaction to us is. Right, so in terms of their activity, 2, oh, so they're hunting. Oh, that's right. So I'm gonna note here. Oh, we met a fairy in this room. Right. So what's its attitude toward us? Now we do get a +4 on this because Strogar, the half-orc, is extremely charismatic. So 11, so curious. Okay, so it is seeming curious about us. So I don't know that we necessarily want to interact with it much. Nonetheless, I guess the question is there treasure in this room to be had? That's the question. 50% chance. The answer is no. So there is none here, right? So the fairy is clearly hunting for something. I think we're inclined to just kind of leave it alone and move on. And because it is simply curious about us, I think that creates some potential that it might follow us later on, but I don't think that I'm going to be particularly worried um, about it. Okay, so next door then. Sure. So, how many doors are there out of this room? Four tells me there is one. Okay. And where is that door? Three. It is to the left. So we're coming this way. So that means we shut to the top of the page. So I need to make room for that. There we go. Pushing up this way. All right. So we're in room number three. So what do we know about room number three? Well, let's find out. So in terms of size, it's another large room. And what kind of room is it? The type of room is type 4, which is a special room. Oh, I'm kind of excited about that. So, a special room, there's a list of special rooms. So, let's see what is in this room that makes it so special. 63. So, there's a neutral altar. Okay, so let me write that down. Neutral altar. So, let's find out what that means exactly. It's neutral altar. It's entry number 63. This altar is non-aligned, can be used to worship any god or devil by making an offering or sacrifice respectively. If an offering is made, the character will receive the value of the items or GP in experience points. If a sacrifice is made, they get experience points for killing the sacrificed creature and the same value in GP. Depending on what is done on the altar, only one offering or sacrifice can be made. It will become either divine or evil after 1 week. Okay. Okay. So I think this is something it's good to make note of because in the case that our priest ends up falling under disapproval from his god, this would be someplace he could come and he could make some kind of sacrifice or offering, something like that. An offering makes sense for him. Right, so I think that is it's worth noting, but there is no reason to believe there's treasure here specifically. That all depends on kind of what kind of room you're dealing with, of what specifically we're dealing with in terms of what type of special room. So, nothing there. All right, next then. So, from this room, how many doors are there? One, that would indicate there would be none, but there has to be one somewhere. So, we'll just re-roll it. Five, there's one room. There's one door. And what direction is it? It is to the right. Right, so I'm just going in a circle. Okay. So what I'm imagining here is that even though we're all on the same level, like the slope, there has been a little bit of slope, right, to these tunnels as I move from room to room. So it may have been gradual enough, and these corners may be long enough. We didn't really notice we were actually heading down slightly. All right, so this was our entrance, but now we're actually kind of below where we would have entered in room number 4. What type of room is this? It's a large room. A large room? Yeah, and the type, oh no, it's type. The type is going to be 6. Oh, 6 is a monster room. Yeah. All right. So we're in another monster room. Let's find out what type of monster we're dealing with here. 4. So 4 would be a peasant. Right. So well, you know about peasants. I'm just going to pull them out. Interesting peasants are considered monsters. It's a commoner in worn clothes. There's no reason to believe that this commoner in worn clothes is going to be immediately hostile to us. Right. So it makes sense that we would do a reaction roll. So let's go ahead and roll again with a +4. So that would be 6, so it's 10. So it's again curious. So the peasant, I think, is kind of wondering why we're here. I'm wondering if there's any treasure in this room. That's the important thing. Nope, no treasure here either. Guess I'll just note here that there's a peasant. What was the peasant doing? Okay, 6. Six indicates eating. Right, so the peasant is here in the dark. Right, now, one kind of odd thing about Shadowdark, as I'm thinking about this in context, is that all of the monsters have the ability to see it. They have dark sight or whatever it is. Right? I guess that would include this peasant who is here just kind of eating. I'm guessing that this is part of it. There's a faction of peasants that is here inside of this dungeon. I'm guessing that their eyes have just kind of adjusted over time or something like that. So they're perfectly fine in the dark. This actually makes me realize something, and that is that I should have lit a torch. So let me go ahead and use one of the torches that Godfrey, our thief, was carrying. And that gets us 10 rounds. I'm going to just say it's 10 rooms, unless we happen to get into a combat, in which case then it's going to burn out a little bit faster. Okay, so we've had it for 4 rooms. We're okay so far. I just need to make sure that we have torches to get back out. That's going to be important. All right. So we came across this peasant who is eating. It's kind of curious about us, but I don't know that we really feel a lot of need to interact with them. So I'm not going to. I'm just going to kind of leave them to their meal, and we will keep moving on. Okay. All right. So next door, how many are 10? 10 says there are 3 doors from here. So we're kind of going all different directions. So I'm going to have them go, for the sake of writing it, I'm going to throw in some diagonals here. Otherwise, it's going to get real messy. So we need to decide which of these paths you want to go down, the upper, the middle, or the lower. And this also means now that we have multiple paths, I don't immediately have to re-roll anytime it says none. So I'm gonna go down the southern, considering kind of the southern path, because that moves me away from the edge of my paper. That's the reason. So we get to this room. How big is it? 4. So it's a medium-sized room. So it's number 5. Medium room. What type of room is it? 3. I'm gonna double check that. I don't recall. 3 is an empty room. So it's an empty room, but again, not literally empty. In this room, there is oh 6, an altar. Altar. So apparently, these peasants or whomever must care a lot about like worship because we have altars all over the place. Now this altar, I'm guessing, is not endowed with any particular power as far as that goes, because this isn't a special room. It's just a like a plain altar as far as that goes. So I'm guessing this one's kind of in bad shape. Clearly, has not been used recently, perhaps. Okay, so like I'm kind of imagining it. So like when he looks at it, Vishal says, "Well, this really wasn't particularly useful for me. Not like the one that was 2 rooms ago." Okay, right. So, but is there treasure here? There may be treasure near the altar. The answer is no. 15% chance. I rolled a 17. Right, so still no treasure. We're just wandering around, but no treasure for us. All right. Continuing then, how many doors are there leaving this one? 4. 4 indicates just one door. So where is that door located relative to us coming in? It's to the right. Right, so I'm going to say that it's going downward here. It's heading to the south. This thing front, left, right. There we go. So number 6. Okay. And what do we have here in room number 6? Oh, you know what? I could actually roll for like the type of door it is and whether it's stuck and that kind of thing. Let's do that. Let's see. So there's this door. I do want to check. What kind of door is it? 12. It's a locked wooden door. So it has to be unlocked with a key or by a. Oh wow! When I look at this, okay, it's like none of the doors are easy. They're all like, okay, this has to be forced open. Okay, okay, but actually that's not necessarily a problem. It's be forced open, which is loud. Being loud is the thing. So you're not going to sneak into a room. Is the thing. All right. So this one, it's a locked wooden door, which then opens up the opportunity for Godfrey, our thief, to actually do some thievy kind of stuff. All right. So let's find out how hard this door is to unlock. Right, so I think that this, well, that's something that can add turns, isn't it? Right, so, okay. Now time starts mattering. Okay, now I'm getting this, so I probably should actually make them search, that kind of thing. Right, so Godfrey's going to try to unlock here. Now, because it's a thiefy kind of thing, he gets advantage on it. Let's go ahead and roll this one first. I'm going to do 11 plus whatever this d4 says as my difficulty, so it's 13 as my difficulty. So we're going to go ahead and roll. This is going to be a dex roll with advantage. It's probably going to be doable. A dex with +2 for God. We got a 14, 12 plus 2, 14. So we made it through without any problem there. Cool. All right. That's nice. Oh, and this is where like the turns would come in. I like it. Okay. All right. So we get into room number 6. What is in room number 6? Well, first, in terms of size, 5 indicates that it is just a medium-sized room. What type of room is it? 3 indicates that it is another empty room. Lots of empty rooms here. Okay. I actually kind of expected us to run into more monsters, which is kind of a shame we're not, because monsters are the ones that have the highest chance of actually getting us some kind of treasure. Okay, so 19. That's what's in this empty room. Pained skeletons. Oh dear. Well, I guess these are the tunnels of doom, so there must be something somewhat. It's like, oh, it's just the tunnels of everything's fine. There are chained skeletons here. Does there happen to be treasure on the Yoga? Maybe 15% chance. Out of 15. Okay, so that's a yes. So there is treasure. Found our first treasure of the game. So let's find out what that treasure is. And I have my treasure table here again from the Shadowdark Quick Start, so that it's keeping everything kind of within what I guess is considered appropriate, like Chalcedon. So let's see. 36. 36, this is for treasure table for 0 through 3. 36 says a wavy bladed great sword worth 12 GP. Pretty cool. So I'm just gonna hand this. So I guess Godfrey is the one that can take it. He unlocked the door. So this is a wavy braided, yeah, wavy bladed great sword. Although a great sword takes 2 slots, doesn't it? Pretty sure it does. So I'm gonna have it take 2 slots for him. So wavy blade, great sword. Well, GP. Okay. I'm gonna circle that as something that I'm probably gonna sell. Okay. Like unless for some reason, I mean, it might be that Hrogar would want a great sword. He already has a great sword. So, and there's really no point in him taking another great sword. Okay. All right, cool. Right, so we finally got a little bit of treasure. Yes. Next up, right? So here, I'm guessing it's on one of these skeletons. So I'm guessing these skeletons, they may have been wearing leather armor at some point, but it's degraded. But there is still left here with this wavy bladed great sword that one of them had with them or something. Although you wouldn't chain up somebody with their great sword. So I'm guessing it's somewhere else in the room. Right? Just to haunt them. Yeah, I would believe that. All right. So next then, doors. How many doors are there out of this room? 11. 11 tells us there are 3 doors, so I can go any direction from here. All right. So I'm just going to go through. I like going toward the center of the page, so I'm going to go straight ahead. So I'm going to make this room 7 right here. And what I want to do is to check what type of door that is, because now I remember that's a thing. So what kind of door is it? 6 is just a stuck door. So it's something that we can push our way through. I'm guessing we can, yeah, they have to be forced open, but it doesn't say anything about like needing to, having to have a strength roll or something like that to make this happen. And we have a couple fairly strong people, actually quite a few fairly strong people. Weirdly enough, the strongest character we have is the halfling. Okay. Anyway, so we push open the stuck door, makes a loud noise, which the important thing here is that means we're not going to be sneaking in on whatever happens to be on the other side of that door. Speaking of room number seven is apparently is that a small room? It's small. Okay. It's the first small room that I've come across. And what kind of room it is for it's a special room. Okay, so it's a small special room, specifically with 73. It's a room out of time. Oh, that's cool. So let's see what that means. So room out of time. Entry number 73. Upon entering this room, the characters travel through time and arrive in a different version of the room. We roll. It's in the distant past. In the distant past version, they'll meet one of the architects or creators of the dungeon. The latter will be eager to talk about their creation to the PCs and may even reveal some secrets, such as some secret doors. Hmm. Leaving the room means coming back to the present. Entering the when re-entering the room, it will be in its present state. This room will be encountered. It can be encountered twice per dungeon, but only once in each of its forms. Okay, right. So what that means, so as we walk through this door, so who created these tunnels of doom? I guess would be an interesting question. Because we already indicated these seem to be natural tunnels. They weren't in fact carved out by dwarves or something like that. Um, which is interesting. And so I guess what are we meeting? Is it just like with water or something like that? Let's do that. Yeah, I like that idea actually. So let's say that these were carved out by water, and there is in fact an underwater stream flowing through here. So much so that this very small room uh, is in fact flooded with water. And so as we walk through, and as we walk through this door, we're immediately just in effect drowning. So the question is, right, are we all going to be able to keep our heads above water? I think that's a good way to do this. So I'm going to have my weakest character, the Ishana, roll a strength roll just to see how well he's swimming. 18 plus 1, 19, quite well. So they all managed to keep their heads above water despite the flow here. And we are able to identify a way out, I would assume. Right, so how many ways out are there? Uh, nope, that's the wrong die. How many ways out are there? Seven. No, there aren't seven ways out. There are two ways out. So what direction are these two ways? A four and a one. So one's to the front and one's to the left. And I'm guessing that these are kind of the ways that, since I was going this way, left would actually be this direction. So these are the ways that you can see the water's flowing out, right? So we just kind of duck our heads under and swim right through until we then like as soon as we leave the room, we like hit the floor because there isn't actually any water flow out here. And then as we wandered in the hallway, we do come across another door. And this door happens to be 18. It is a portcullis, which can be lifted same as forcing a stuck door, but it's not as loud. Okay, so this is the easy one. So we can actually like open up the portcullis without any kind of problems. Then that means that room number 8 we can actually maybe sneak into if we wish. So I'm actually going to say that that is something that we would do. Right. So Godfrey is going to be the one trying to like sneak in there, see what's going on, and that, if it happens to be a monster room, I'm going to say gives us some possibility of surprising them. Okay. All right. Or we might possibly use some backstab. That's something. All right. And so what do you know about this room? It's a small room. This is our second small room. What kind of room is it? It's an empty room. Now, empty rooms should only happen about one third of the time, I would note. Okay, but they seem to be getting more than that. 78. 78, the sarcophagus. Oh, there's a sarcophagus here. I'm imagining here there's a small burial chamber. And Oh, it's very believable there might be treasure in here. Is there any treasure? There is absolutely not. So I'm guessing that the grave robbers or whatever have already taken whatever would have been in this room. So, Godfrey comes in, he looks around, he doesn't find anything. So everybody else comes in without any kind of problem. It's not a monster room or anything like that. So are there any ways out of here? Uh, that roll tells us that there is in fact one door leaving this room, but it is to the right, which on my paper means it's to the left. Since I'm going by our walking path. Okay. Right, so that means then we have room number 9. It's going to be here. Now you might be wondering, what about all of these paths up here? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 unexplored paths. So what I'm thinking here is that those, well, one of those might be the steps down. I think that's a reasonable thing to do. And the other ones are going to go into other rooms. So I'm going to have to try to like keep track of how many extra spaces there are, and that kind of thing. I think that makes sense. So in the meantime, room number 9. So I will at least occasionally stop and double check, just make sure I'm not getting outrageously too many unexplored pathways. 5 indicates this is a medium room for number 9. And what type of room is it? 6. I think I forgot to roll for the type of door. Yeah, whatever. Assume it was a stuck door. So we're not going to be sneaking up on these monsters because I forgot that 6 is a monster room. Okay, that's all right. Right, so monster room. What kind of monster do we have in this room? If it's something that's going to immediately attack us, possibly. Yeah. 1, it's a fairy again. So what is this fairy doing? For activity 7, it is building or nesting here. And then what is its attitude towards us? This is at a +3. It is also curious. Okay, so what are we doing here? It's just keeping an eye on us, but I think if we keep a respectful distance, we'll be okay. The question is there also treasure in this room? Ooh, 45. The answer is yes, there is actually treasure in this room, which means we may, in fact, have to confront this fairy. So I'm wondering what kind of treasure we observe. So let's go ahead and roll. I'm going to roll on the treasure table. No, here, this is a fairy room. Okay. Right, so I'm going to roll here on the treasure table just to see what it is. 12. Right, so it's a dull dagger worth 1 GP. I don't know if that's worth picking up, is it? I mean, XP is XP. Use dagger, actually, use dagger would be considered poor treasure, and therefore it would not, in fact, be worth anything. Whereas, okay, so things like a gem, a bag of gold, these kinds of things would be considered normal treasure, which would be worth 1 XP. Oh, that means everybody got an XP just because of that sword. Okay. In any case, I think this dull dagger, I'm going to make a note of it that it's here, but I don't think that it's worth taking because it is not equivalent to a bag of gold, is what it boils down to. Right. So in terms of leveling, kind of the way this works, so core treasure would be things like a bag of silver, used dagger, and knuckle bone dice. The normal would be a bag of gold, gem, fine armor, magic scroll. Fabulous armor would be things like a magic sword, a giant diamond, mithril chainmail, that kind of thing. It's like a magic weapon, just so you know from my value list here, it would be worth about 200 GP. Yeah. Then a legendary would be something like very, very specific, like a dragon horde, or like a specific, like the staff of Ord. It says Ord is one of the gods, one of the lawful gods. So, so it's normally going to be 1 point. 1 XP is typical. You might occasionally get lucky and get 3. Okay, well, so I think that one, we see the Dull Dagger. I don't really want to force a confrontation with this fairy, so I'm going to just ignore it. I'm going to leave it here and move on to the 10th room. And the 10th room, I think, is going to be our last one because that's going to burn out our torch. So I think that that would be a good place for us to just call it, right? Okay, so how many doors are there from this room? 3 indicates there are none. Ha ha! All right, so we're going to have to work our way back. Is it? So back in, I think we're going to have to end in room 8, at which point our torch burns out, we're gonna have to light a new one. So I'll just make a note of that. So I think that's pretty. So this is my first time really being able to do any kind of dungeon delving using Shadowdark, which is wild that I'm in session, was it 18, 19? I think it's 19 at this point. Um, and only now am I actually like doing actual dungeon delving. What it is. All right. So I think that is going to be that. So next time the plan is to continue exploring this area in this dungeon, continue trying to acquire whatever kind of treasure I can get. What I ideally want to do is load up all of my characters with treasure, or finish the exploration um, of this level, right? So it's kind of those two options are what I'm thinking. So I think that that is that. So until next time, this is Profi signing off.